It's time!
What's kicking, everybody? We are back for another episode of Pickin Fights. I'm Keith. I'm not joined by Tom today. Unfortunately, we're going separately. Individually, we're doing our own thing today. Nothing has happened, don't worry. Just, separate schedules. This is what happens when you're working adults and you both have full-time jobs. Me personally, my schedule is all over the place. That's why we typically try to bring it to you on Sundays. But this is one of those weeks where things didn't really work out. So I'm here first. Tom will be up next. Before I dive in, I just want to remind everybody at home, please like, comment, and subscribe on here. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter @_PickinWinners. You can follow me on Twitter right here @PickinKeith. And, I'm just going to dive right in here, keep it relatively quick for y'all because there are going to be two separate videos. I'm reminding you again, one more time, Tom will be going on YouTube, potentially live at some point later. But this week we have UFC Paris, and this is one card that I'm actually super pumped for. We had the week off last week, which was nice. Everybody is still recovering from that Kamaru Usman victory. That was really something special. Pretty intense, honestly. I said Kamaru victory. I meant Leon Edwards victory. Kamaru Usman loss. But yeah, that was super special. Good for Leon. I'll agree, with a lot of other people. I counted Leon out of that fight up until Tom brought it to my attention that Leon probably had a pretty good shot. We both said more likely to win by decision, but like Leon said, pound for pound, headshot, dead. So good for Leon. Now, this week, we've also got an interesting one. It's UFC Paris. After being illegal and not recognized as a sport in the country of France since, I believe, 2016, the UFC and MMA in general is back now. It's, been legalized. It's recognized as a sport again. So there we are. And the UFC is pulling that same playbook that Dana White used for the UK, loaded up with some London fighters or British fighters, United Kingdom fighters. I guess, if you include Wales and all those other countries over there in the United Kingdom. In the case of the UK card, now that's what they're doing with, this French card. They have some fighters from France. They've got some French-Canadian fighters, one we'll talk about in the main card opener right now. But yeah, similar playbook over here with the UFC Paris card. And the main event is the biggest French fighter on the roster currently, figuratively and literally the biggest. But we'll dive right in. I'm going to start off with I'm not going to do any prelim notables this week. There aren't too many that I feel super confident in. Plus, I want to keep this video nice, quick, sweet, short, and to the point for everybody. So, for the main card opener, we've got Charles Jourdain versus Nathaniel Wood. This is a good fight, solid fight, solid matchup. But, I like Charles Jourdain. He had a solid fight against Shane Burgos, who is now in the PFL by choice. He tested the free agency, the open market, and got the bag over there in the PFL. But Charles Jourdain did lose that one by decision. It was one that he certainly could have won. Charles Jourdain is a big, powerful striker and has put heavy strikes on guys in the featherweight division in the past. It's a major test this week for Nathaniel Wood. Wood only just moved up from bantamweight. He fought his last fight over there, in the featherweight division, but prior to that was a 125er. And I think this week he's going to see that there's a major power difference between 125 pounds and 135 pounds. Sure, he won his last fight against Charles Rosa, 135er, but Charles Rosa is pretty bad. All credit, respect to Charles Rosa. We've been getting some people in the past that have been commenting like, hey, don't say guys are bad. Well, in comparison to everybody else, in that weight class, Charles Rosa is pretty bad. It's not to say that we don't appreciate him going out there and putting it on the line. fighting for our entertainment. But Charles Rosa is pretty bad. He did find himself, Nathaniel Wood, he did find himself in a few bad spots against Charles Rosa that fight. And, a guy like Jourdain is going to put Nathaniel Wood into similar positions, and he has the power to end the fight. In those risky spots that Nathaniel Wood was in against Charles Rosa, Charles Jourdain will take full advantage of that. So next up, we've got John Macadessi versus Nazarat Hakras. And Macadessi has been on a long layoff. But then you look at the young man in Nazarat Hakras. He's been active, pretty active, against solid competition. Most recently, he's fought really good strikers like Bobby Green and Dan Hooker. He also has a significant, I believe, 4 or 5 inch reach advantage and a 10-year youth advantage over Macadessi. Macadessi doesn't really present the challenge on the feet that Bobby Green, Dan Hooker, Nazarat's previous opponents have really brought to the table. Over a year-long layoff, it's really not good for Macadessi. The inactivity isn't going to help him. Octagon rust is really a real thing in this sport for most guys. There are some guys that prove that wrong, but you look at Nazarat Hakras, and he has some decent power. Good cardio. He didn't really bring too much of a challenge to the guys like Bobby Green and Dan Hooker, but I certainly believe he learned something from those experiences. The cardio is going to help him. So, I expect the activity versus the inactivity is definitely going to help Nazarat Hakras to pull out a win here. All right, then we have Roman Kappalove versus Alessio de Cheruko, and this is a little bit of a tougher one to pick. But Kappalove hasn't really had a chance to hit his stride in the UFC yet. He's had 2 fights there, and everybody else that he's been slated to fight has pulled out. I believe like Sam Alvey was up there. He pulled out, a couple other names. And then you look at Alessio de Cheruko. He's got some good wins, a head kick win over Joaquin Buckley, but he is coming off a bad knockout loss over a year ago. And again, more inactivity, and the head kick loss isn't really, good for your chin in the long run. Maybe the time off was good for recovery for the chin, but remains to be seen. I think Kappalove is pretty accurate with his strikes. He's got some pretty decent power. He also rocked another newcomer in his last fight, Albert Duraev. Duraev was schooled in his last fight by Joaquin Buckley, but I just think for Kappalove to land the caliber of shots that he did in that fight does say something about his power, because it did look like Duraev had a pretty solid chin. It was, I believe it was a doctor stoppage against Joaquin Buckley just because Buckley tore up his face. Other than that, Duraev looks to have a pretty solid chin. De Cheruko does have the ability to catch Kappalove early in this fight. He has done that in the past against a couple guys. But I just don't think that if that happens, that he's going to have the cardio to keep up with Kappalove. Kappalove has incredibly good cardio and can certainly win the long fight if this goes 15 minutes. So next up, the co-main event, absolutely flying through this card right now. This fight's going to be sick. This is, 2 of the best guys in this division. You have the uber-talented Robert Whitaker against the super gritty Marvin Vittori. I love Marvin Vittori, personally a huge fan of his, just because he is tough AF. He isn't the best fighter, but he can eat shots like crazy and just keep walking forward. You look at that fight against Paulo Costa, just getting battered with, body kicks and crazy punches from Paulo Costa. And just here comes Marvin Vittori just walking forward. He moves his head quite a bit. But when he does get connected with, it's, he doesn't really get stunned that often. He's also somewhat intelligent. He does have the ability to understand his opponent's weaknesses. You look at that fight against Kevin Holland, and obviously Kevin Holland, everybody knows that the game plan, or at least back then about a year ago, was to wrestle Kevin Holland. But, Marvin Vittori does try to exploit his opponent's weaknesses. He has the ability to counter a couple shots. He's not like the quickest counter striker, but if something is telegraphed, Marvin Vittori does have the ability to, throw a quick little counter in there, a lot of body shots. he does like those body shots quite a bit, but I just think that the kickboxing from Whitaker is going to be too much in this one. I think the best chance Vittori has is to do what he always does and walk Whitaker down, attempt to get him against the cage, and land those big body shots. That's what he does. He gets you against the cage, starts to shoot for the aim for the head, and then as soon as you cover up a little bit, you're not as mobile up against the cage. Then Marvin Vittori starts to land those good body shots, but I don't think that he really has the upper hand in this one. The toughness is certainly in his favor. I love his toughness. Like I said, I'm a huge Marvin Vittori fan. I love how goofy he is outside of the cage. Like when he put on his shorts backwards right before for the photo shoot for the last Adesanya fight. I think he's being counted out by a lot of people at plus 195 for Vittori. I mean, if you like Vittori and you want to bet on him, that's a really solid line because for as many people are counting him out, I don't think that, it's as disparaging as everybody thinks. Sure, Whitaker was, the champion coming back, trying to get that belt back, but Vittori he's solid. He's not talented, but he's solid. We did see last week or 2 weeks ago now, Leon Edwards was counted out by everybody, and anything can happen in a fight. So being that I'm a Marvin Vittori fan, and if you've been following this page and this channel for a while, you know that I love Marvin Vittori. I'll bet on him even against Adesanya, and I did because that's my guy. There's very few fighters I let the fan bias come through for, and Marvin Vittori is one of them. So at plus 195, I'm actually going to go with Marvin Vittori because, like I said, I don't really necessarily believe he's going to win. This is certainly a biased pick, but I like the money line. I like him as a fan, and every now and then I like to be contrarian. You gotta pick the dogs every now and then. Marvin Vittori is certainly he's a fun guy to bet on. So now we move on up to the main event, and I'm a big fan of both of these men. And listen, that's not to say I'm not a fan of Robert Whitaker, but I'm just a bigger fan of Marvin Vittori in the previous fight. In this one, I'm equally as big of fans of Ciryl Gane as I am Tai Tuivasa. So there's no clear bias for me here. I think Ciryl Gane will beat Tai Tuivasa, though, because he is just far more skilled than Tai Tuivasa. Tai has powerful bombs of shots, but for Ciryl Gane to eat the shots of Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou, I do not believe that Tai will even stun Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane is way better at range, uses lots of really smart kicks, and especially like a lot of good teep kicks. And he likes to keep guys away at range. He bounces around a lot, bounces away from guys with power. And that's what he's going to do against Tai. He's going to keep him far away from where he can use his power. Ciryl Gane, I certainly believe he outclasses Tai Tuivasa to a 5-round decision. And in the later rounds, Tai's cardio fails him. I don't think there's going to be any shoeys in Paris this week unless it's Ciryl Gane doing it with Tai Tuivasa at the end of the fight after Ciryl Gane has won. Tai Tuivasa is a good sport, fun guy, loves the Nelk boys, loves that lifestyle. So maybe he sticks around just to do a shoey because he hasn't done one in Paris yet. Does one with Ciryl, but Tai Tuivasa has been doing a lot of partying recently. He's living a different lifestyle. And Ciryl Gane, I mean, you could just see it on their bodies. Guys that party a bit more, like myself, you tend to carry a little bit more bad weight on you. And then you look at Ciryl Gane, and Ciryl Gane is just lean muscle, big. I genuinely believe that Ciryl Gane could be an athlete in any sport. I think that he could play tight end in the NFL. I think he could be a center in the NBA, maybe a power forward. But he's just so big, so athletic, and I think he'd be highly successful at any of that because, I mean, he's like the hybrid athlete right now that's coming about. Potentially a future champion. I really thought he was going to beat Francis Ngannou in that fight, and he came closer than a lot of people were willing to give him credit for. But with all that being said, those are my main card picks. So I'll just run it down again one more time. Let me get this little banner up here. So we've got the pick rundown, and this is my individual pick rundown. Just a reminder, Tom will be going live solo probably later today. But I'm going with Charles Jourdain over Nathaniel Wood, Nazarat Hakras over John Macadessi, Going with Roman Kappalove over Alessio de Cheruko. Personal pick. Don't tell me on this one if you don't believe in it. I'm going with Marvin Vittori over Robert Whitaker. That's personal fan bias, Marvin Vittori toughness bias, Marvin Vittori goofball bias. And then I'm also taking Cyril Gane in the main event over Tai Tuivasa. So thanks again. Just want to remind everybody, please like, comment, and subscribe. Had a couple viewers in here. Didn't really get so many comments. Let me check. Nope, no comments. Well, still appreciate you guys that were watching this live. Quick little episode here, sort of unannounced, came out of the blue. Wasn't our normal Sunday time, so I totally get it. But, just make sure you're following us as well on Twitter and Instagram. We should be back next week, Sunday, at our normal time to talk about, let me just check. Is there another fight night in between now and UFC 279? No, sir. So we've got 279. And that is, we'll be talking about that next Sunday. That is going to be crazy. The main event is Hamza versus Nathan Diaz. Nate Diaz, our logo, our picture. If you've been here a while, we love Nate Diaz. So really looking forward to rejoining Tom and talking about that one next Sunday, probably around 10 a.m. Mark it in your calendars. Put a reminder on your cell phone. Make sure, your wife, girlfriend, dog, whoever wakes you up so that you can tune in live Sunday. Thank you for joining us. See you soon.